This is the girl who saved my life when I was weary from my journey to heal you. She showed me kindness when I was a stranger. I will marry her." Prince Kofi's voice rang through the air, clear and unshakable, as he stood before the assembly. Every eye in the vast gathering turned toward the young woman he had chosen, the girl in the simple, torn dress standing quietly in the back of the crowd. A stunned silence fell over the festival. Amina's heart raced in disbelief as the truth crashed upon her. The humble, weary traveler she had helped by the roadside was, in fact, none other than the prince. The whispers spread like wildfire. Amina's cruel stepmother and stepsisters, who had once mocked her and scorned her kindness, now stood frozen, their faces pale with regret. They had no idea that the man they had insulted, the one they had disregarded, was a very man whose heart they could never win. And as Prince Kofi, with firm determination, led Amina to the royal family, the crowd parted in reverence. The kingdom would never forget this day, the day when the true beauty of kindness was revealed, and a new princess was crowned. This is how it began. Once upon a time, in a peaceful African village nestled near a dense, mystical forest, there lived a young girl named Amina. Her life, like the first light of dawn that kissed the earth, was simple yet filled with hardship. The village was a small, serene place, surrounded by vibrant nature, where people lived in harmony with the land and each other. But for Amina, life was far from peaceful. Left an orphan after her parents tragically passed away, Amina was taken in by her stepmother, Marioma, who treated her with cruelty and disdain. Marioma, a bitter and cold-hearted woman, made Amina's life a never-ending cycle of servitude. From the moment the sun rose, Amina was given endless chores to do, sweeping the compound, washing clothes in the nearby river, and preparing meals for the family. Her stepmother would sit idly by, sipping her palm wine, while Amina worked tirelessly. Zainab and Lara, Amina's stepsisters, joined in the cruelty. They ridiculed Amina's modest dress and made her the subject of their jokes. But Amina's heart remained kind, and despite the daily mistreatment, she never let bitterness consume her. Her life seemed like one endless trial, a series of tasks designed to break her spirit. But even as her body grew weary, Amina's heart stayed strong. She found beauty in the small moments, the songs of the birds, the rustle of the trees and the wind, the soft whispers of the river. Her humility and kindness became her armor, even when the world around her seemed determined to break her down. In the royal palace, far beyond the village, the king had fallen gravely ill. His only son, Prince Kofi, was a young man of strength and honor. He loved his father deeply and couldn't bear to see the kingdom suffer as the king's health deteriorated. The royal physicians had done all they could, but nothing seemed to work. Desperate, Prince Kofi set out on a quest to find a rare herb that was rumored to have healing powers. The herb grew deep in the heart of the forest, in a place few dared to venture. It was said to cure even the most stubborn illnesses, and the prince believed it could save his father. For days, Prince Kofi traveled through the thick forest, enduring dangers and hardships. His body was battered by thorns, his energy drained by exhaustion. But he pressed on, knowing that his father's life depended on the success of his journey. On the sixth day, deep within the forest, he found a precious herb, its delicate blue flowers glowing like the stars in the night sky. With it in hand, he began his journey back to the palace. But by the time he reached the outskirts of the village, Prince Kofi was utterly exhausted. His strength had left him, and he could go no further. The sun was setting, and the prince, with his body weak and trembling, collapsed by the side of the road near a tree at the edge of the village. He was barely conscious, too drained to move, too tired to care for himself. It was then that Amina appeared. She had just finished her work on the farm and was on her way back home, carrying a pot of palm wine for her stepmother. The golden evening light bathed the village in warmth as Amina walked along the path, lost in her thoughts. As she approached the tree, she saw the young man slumped against it, looking weak and vulnerable. Her heart, full of compassion, could not ignore the sight. Amina, with no hesitation, knelt beside him and offered the pot of palm wine. "Please," she said softly, her voice full of care. "Take some palm wine. It will help you feel better." The young man, his body drained of energy, took the pot and drank deeply. His strength began to return as a cool liquid refreshed him. Amina did not ask his name, nor did she care about his status. To her, he was simply a man in need, and her heart told her to help him. Before they could speak further, Amina's stepsisters, Zainab and Lara, appeared. They had been walking together and, seeing Amina with a stranger, they immediately grew angry. Their pride and cruelty got the better of them as they mocked her. "Look at you, wasting our mother's precious palm wine on some filthy beggar." Zainab sneered, her face twisted in disdain. "You foolish girl, you'll regret this," Lara spat. Her eyes narrowed as she looked the young man up and down. Their insults stung, but Amina said nothing. She had learned long ago that responding to cruelty only brought more suffering. She quietly gathered the pot and began to walk back home, hoping to avoid further conflict. But when she arrived, her stepmother was waiting, fuming with anger. Marioma scolded her harshly, accusing her of wasting the palm wine on a man who had no value. As punishment, Amina was locked outside the house for several days, with nothing to eat or drink. Her body grew weak, but her spirit remained unbroken. She found comfort in the quiet of the night, gazing at the stars above and whispering her hopes for a better tomorrow. Meanwhile, Prince Kofi had returned to the palace with a healing herb, and the royal physicians quickly crafted a remedy that saved the king's life. The entire kingdom rejoiced, and the king, in his gratitude, decided to hold a grand festival. This festival would give Prince Kofi the opportunity to choose a bride from among the village maidens. When the news reached the village, excitement spread like wildfire. Every family prepared their daughters in their finest clothes, hoping to catch the prince's eye. Zainab and Lara, eager to win the prince's favor, wore their most extravagant gowns and adorned themselves with jewelry. They were confident that their beauty would impress him. Amina, however, was forbidden to attend. Her stepmother forced her to stay home and finish her chores. But Amina, longing to see the festival even from a distance, quietly slipped away. She wore her simple, faded dress, nothing compared to the magnificent gowns of her stepsisters, but her heart was light with anticipation. At the festival, Zainab and Lara danced with all their might, each of them trying to outshine the other. Their laughter echoed through the crowd as they performed their most graceful dances. But as the prince watched, his eyes moved beyond them, scanning the sea of villagers. His gaze landed on Amina, in the back of the crowd. The girl in the torn dress stood quietly, her eyes shining with a quiet dignity. To Prince Kofi, it was as though she glowed. He remembered the kindness she had shown him by the roadside, when she had shared her palm wine with a stranger without a second thought. That was the true beauty he had seen in her, and it was in that moment that he knew she was the one. Without hesitation, Prince Kofi stood and pointed directly at Amina, his voice carrying across the festival grounds. "Father," he said, his words firm and filled with admiration, "this is the girl who saved my life when I was weary from my journey to heal you. She showed me kindness when I was a stranger. I will marry her." A hush fell over the crowd. Amina stood frozen, stunned by the prince's words. Her stepmother and stepsisters stood in shock, their faces pale with regret. They had mocked the young man, never realizing he was a prince, and now they saw their mistake too late. Prince Kofi took Amina's hand and led her to the royal family. The king, moved by the story of Amina's kindness, welcomed her into the palace. And so, the orphan girl who had been mistreated and overlooked became a princess, loved and admired by all. The grand wedding followed soon after, and Amina, in her simple beauty, radiated joy. The kingdom rejoiced as the prince and his new bride were married, their love shining brighter than any jewel. Amina had won the heart of the prince, not with riches or beauty, but with the strength of her kindness. And so, Amina and Prince Kofi lived happily in the palace, their love growing stronger with each passing day. The kingdom prospered under their rule, and the people praised the wisdom and compassion of their princess. Amina never forgot her humble beginnings and used her position to help those in need. As for Mariama, Zainab, and Lara, they lived in regret, their cruelty having cost them the life they had always dreamed of. Though they tried to redeem themselves, it was too late. Their bitterness had shut the door to any happiness they might have had. And so, the story of Amina and Prince Kofi lived on, a tale of kindness, humility, and the power of a good heart.